Indianapolis Colts cornerback Sauce Gardner could make his debut in Germany this Sunday. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com. My partner, Jake Arthur, is the credentialed boots on the ground for Round Table Sports. I'm still getting used to saying Sauce Gardner, part of the Indianapolis Colts, as you could tell in the opening segment there.
It sounded crazy when you said that. I was like, wow.
Yeah, no, it was crazy when I saw him on the injury report today and I saw his name on there. It's when it hit me that it's for real. But we're going to talk all about Sauce Gardner, obviously today, what it means for the team, what it means for the defense, and also kind of what it means for this injury report this week. So let's kind of kick off this episode, Jake, by talking about the Wednesday injury report, because that's what we do on Wednesdays. There were a couple did not practices for the Colts. I want to keep in mind before you guys all start panicking, like, oh my gosh, we're going to go so shorthanded into Germany. The Wednesday practice is typically the practice where guys get that day off, regardless if they have any minor injury. Then they're going to be as cautious as possible, especially with the Colts having a late bye week this year. They've been pretty cautious on Wednesdays. We'll see what it looks like on Thursday and Friday before we panic. But DeForest Buckner missed practice with a neck injury. Samson Ebukam out with a knee injury. Matt Gonsalves, personal issue. I'm assuming that still relates to his personal tragedy from last week. And we just hope that everything's okay on that front for him. Anthony Gould, wide receiver, out with a knee injury. Tyquan Lewis out with a groin injury. Kenny Moore II out with his Achilles injury. And Michael Pittman Jr. out with a glute injury. Of all the hits he took this past weekend, Jake, I didn't expect glute injury to be the one that popped up for him. But I'm happy it says glute and not head injury for Michael Pittman Jr. But yeah, some concerning names on there. Obviously, Buckner, Gonsalves, Kenny and Pittman are like very concerning names. But again, two of those guys or three of those guys are like the toughest human beings on the team. They will be out there on Sunday, even if they don't have limbs on their body. So I'm not too concerned looking at those names there, Jake.
No, and technically everyone on the roster has a glute injury after what the Steelers did last week.
That's true.
No, but I mean, you made a good point. Don't panic about the Wednesday injury report, because if last Wednesday's injury report was any indicator, the Colts should have lost by 100 because everyone would have been out. So, no, especially on not a short week, but like a short practice week, because, they practice today and tomorrow. They're going to fly out to Germany tomorrow, Thursday night. They'll do a walkthrough, and then that's pretty much going to be it. They're only, after tomorrow, they're only walking through. They're not going to really have any full bore practices. So they're going to slow play it with some guys. I'm going to go ahead and guess that Ebukam and Tyquan probably don't go. Buck, I would have to see evidence that he doesn't have a neck anymore. Obviously, Gonsalves just probably taking some personal time with, like you mentioned, what's going on. I would like to see Anthony Gould get back there, because I was a little hard on him as a punt returner. We're just saying we probably need to see more. I just want to see him in general as the punt returner again. And that's crazy, because Josh Downs is supposed to be the security blanket punt returner. But I think everything's going to be okay. A few of these guys it's kind of their normal weekly maintenance. So I'm fine with what this looks like so far.
I can't believe what you did to the punt return team with your criticism of Anthony Gould. He never dropped it.
That's true.
Other ones had it bounce off his chest.
Downs also let that one go where he was lined up at like the 10 or 12 yard line or whatever. We're not going to dive into the punt return game today, though.
We'll save it for another whole segment where we talk about punt return game. But the most notable name on the injury report, again, the one that made me do a double take because I still can't believe it, cornerback Sauce Gardner popped up on the Colts injury report. He's still dealing with that concussion that led to him missing last week's game for the New York Jets. He was a full participant. I didn't see him out there in the red jersey either, Jake. You saw like no red jersey, which means he's pretty far along in the concussion protocol. I think he's going to play Sunday, Jake. I think we're going to see him in Berlin on Sunday.
Feels like it. Yeah, so he got the concussion 2 weeks ago while with the Jets. The Jets just had a bye week. So there's a good chance he would have already cleared it, but you can't clear it during the bye week because you have to log some practice time and work your way up to ultimately a full practice where they consider it contact and everything, which that is, that he accomplished that today. So he still will have to get cleared by an independent neurologist and everything. I imagine they want to do that sooner rather than later with the flight and like all that stuff. But Aaron Glenn, when Sauce was still a member of the Jets, I think said that he anticipated that he would be cleared from the protocol this week. So, I mean, we could take it from his former coach's word. Shane Steichen seemed pretty optimistic about it today. So, yeah, I think we might see him. And from a cornerback perspective, I mean, loose defenses, it can be pretty complex. But if you're playing man-to-man defense, say, hey, you see Drake London, don't let him do anything.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Right before we jumped on here, I was actually talking with Mina Kimes on Twitter, really right before we started recording this.
Humble brag.
Yeah, the humble brag. But she was talking about how good he has been in press man coverage this year, for instance, against like Ted McMillan. And I think in week 1 against DK Metcalf, for instance, he's been really, really good in press man coverage in those situations. So what better debut game for him than kind of like the peak of those receivers in Drake London. Like Drake London's the peak of like the big, like good route running, taller, like receivers in the league. I think this is a great test for him. Get him out there, get some press man coverage looks. But on top of press man coverage, we're just talking about what Sauce does for the defense. He's also one of the best zone coverage corners in football. Like, it's probably the most underrated aspect of his game, like his zone eyes and his feel and zone coverage. Honestly, I think it's the best I've ever seen from a Colts defensive back in my time covering this team. He understands route concepts. He understands what offenses want to do when they have like high-low situations. He knows they want to hit that high window, so he's going to drift into that window and take that away. Really, really smart and savvy corner on the outside. So about what Sauce Gardner does for the defense, like this week in particular, I mean, it gives them a corner who they can trust in press man coverage just to isolate and just destroy receivers at the line of scrimmage. But also, if you want to go zone coverage, like he can take away a whole side of the field in zone coverage with his length and his smarts on the outside. It's such a great ad from those perspectives. Like he does have some limitations, and I think we'll see those limitations kind of covered up a little bit when Mooney Ward is back, because Mooney can make it so he doesn't get into those disadvantageous spots. But even if he has those spots, he's still like a top 10 corner in football. He's really good, man. He's been a fun watch the last couple of days, and just having a player coming into your team with his zone coverage ability, his press man coverage ability, like he's going to be such a perfect fit for what Lou Anarumo wants on this defense.
Yeah, and on the surface, I think everyone can see, okay, they added a really good cornerback, so like their pass defense is going to be better, but it really does have a trickle-down effect on the entire defense. So for your defensive front, the pass rushers, if you got a guy that is making life more difficult for a route runner, well, that's going to make the quarterback have to hold on to it just a hitch longer. And then you had mentioned yesterday as well, you've got these linebackers that you don't really love having them in coverage. Well, now with more effective defensive backs on the field, like let's say when you get Ward out there, you don't really have to have those guys in coverage as much. You can use them for extracurriculars like blitzing and things like that. So I guess just as soon as this week, but also in the grand scheme of things, like how do you imagine this defense is about to kind of change a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's going to make Lou Anarumo just so much more aggressive. Like on early downs, for instance, if teams want to come out in these like heavy personnel sets like we saw with the Steelers last week, or in condensed personnel sets like we've seen with like the Dolphins, for instance, against them, it gives Lou Anarumo more confidence in blitzing out of those personnel groups, because we know Anarumo's not going to bring on an extra linebacker and go to base defense. Right. So one way to really combat that is getting Nick Cross in the box and blitz him off that backside of those to take away play action games and take away a lot of what they want to do on those early downs. And when you have two corners that you trust on the outside, along with Kenny Moore out there somewhere, it gives you more confidence to blitz on those early downs. And then when we get to third downs, we've seen a lot this year that Anarumo wants to live in this world where he's bringing 5 or 6 guys on third down. He wants to bring 5 or 6 rushers, and he wants to do press man across the board to disrupt the timing. And essentially his entire philosophy being, we want that ball out of the quarterback's hand as quick as possible into a tight window. If you convert a couple ways that way, like that's fine, but you're not going to convert an entire game, especially now if we have Sauce Gardner and Mooney Ward and Kenny Moore as the guys in coverage. Like, I dare you to convert tight windows on that at above a 40% clip, so it's going to make him more confident in doing those press man coverage looks. And then when it comes to like the zone stuff they want to do, you have a guy like Ward that you can just lock on the backside, and Gardner, who you can have on the passing strength side, that can drop into these zone coverage looks and take down a whole other side of the field with his ability to take away multiple concepts. So yeah, I just think it's a great fit, man. I think it's going to help Lou do what he wants to do. It's going to help him get into this more aggressive mindset with more blitzing, especially on third downs, bringing 5 or 6 rushers with confidence now, because he's been doing it all year long, bringing 5 or 6 rushers. But we saw, like in the Cardinals game, for instance, guys were in the right position on these third down plays when they were bringing 5 or 6 rushers, but they couldn't disrupt the ball at the catch point. We saw Jonathan Edwards get beat, Cameron Mitchell get beat constantly in that game. Now you're replacing that with Sauce Gardner, who's been one of the best in football, for years. So it just makes your whole defense a lot better. So schematically, I mean, you're giving like a master chef, like the best ingredient, basically, for his recipe. That's kind of what this is. And basically the rest of the year is about just letting Lou Anarumo cook with what he's got.
Yeah, it's insane. Because, like, obviously you're getting Ward back, but you might also get Mike Hilton back too. Like, the possibilities of what you want to do with all these veteran defensive backs is just kind of crazy. But guys, coming up here in a moment, this move, again, on its head, you see it and you say, okay, the secondary is about to get better. But there's like peripheral implications all across this roster of what trading for Sauce Gardner means, and we'll discuss that in just a moment. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything, from who will score next to the next fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are still talking about this Sauce Gardner trade. Of course, why wouldn't we? So the Colts make a trade here, the biggest trade in Chris Ballard's tenure, and honestly, one of the top 5 trades in Indianapolis era history. You throw in Eric Dickerson, you throw in all of these huge trades that they've made really since the 80s coming into now. This ranks right up there. You're getting a guy who is still considered elite in his prime. He's 24, 25. And you're adding it to a defense that's already been pretty good on a team that is one of the best in the NFL right now. So short term, it's a win now move. It makes you better, gets you over the hump to kind of ensure that you can meet your goals, whether it's deep playoff run, Super Bowl, whatever. But it's also not a rental. Like, he signed a 4-year extension this offseason with the Jets. So you get him through for, I think his contract with the void years, it's like beyond 2030, basically. So you get him, you have control of him for like quite a while. And give up these 2 first-round picks. Normally, you would use those on quarterbacks if you really needed a quarterback. So them dishing out their next 2 first-round picks tells us, hey, we're rolling with Daniel Jones, or we're just going to have to figure out some hellish situation. But also, A.D. Mitchell is part of this trade. You send A.D. Mitchell out. Well, he was always the big X factor on whether you're going to keep Alec Pierce or not. So I think you can kind of book it that both Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce will be back next year.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to touch on that. But I think that the biggest thing I really want to touch on first is just kind of this mantra now that like it is all chips in, and it's telling the whole roster that it is. Like, what better shot of adrenaline or shot of belief do you need from a front office that says we believe in what you guys are doing this year than going out and getting a Sauce Gardner to add to the equation? It's like, hey, we believe so strongly that we're fine with giving up 2 first-round picks because we think they're going to be in the bottom part of that draft because of how well you guys are playing. And I think the quote of the day, and Jake, you can probably give me the exact quote. I'm certainly paraphrasing a little bit here, but Kenny Moore, one of the most well-spoken, like ready to go guys, I think, in the locker room. But like you had the video that posted where it's like, look, it just means that everyone has to step up. Do you know the whole quote off the top of your head there, Jake? What he said earlier?
No, I'd have to
Yeah.
look at, but I am the one that asked him. I was like, as a veteran player in here, what does it say to you when the team makes a move like this? Because it obviously indicates they think you're on the precipice of something.
Right.
And he immediately said, it means we have to turn it up a notch.
That's what it was. Turn it up a notch. That was the exact phrase.
They have to, the front office and coaching staff's expectations are obviously sky high. The players have to kind of meet them in the middle there. So I think, Kenny is one of the biggest leaders on the team. They're very well aware that this kind of move also comes with expectations from the front office that it's go time, like pedal to the metal. Our destination is to the moon right now, and it's up to you guys to kind of help us get there.
Yeah, no, I think that's the most important implication here, where it's telling your leaders in the locker room, the Kenny Moores, who's almost 30 years old, telling DeForest Buckner, who is 30 years old, Grover Stewart, 30 years old, Quentin Nelson, who hasn't really been in part of many playoff teams. It's telling all these guys, like, we are betting on these last couple of years of your guys' primes to go and get it. Now it's on you guys to continue what you're doing, step up and go get it for us. And we're going to give you this big piece, but we're investing first-round picks into what you guys are doing right now. And I think that's the most important implication here is it's the Colts are going all in. But to your point about the other implications, like Daniel Jones is the quarterback of the near future now. Like you're not letting Daniel Jones walk after doing something like this. Right. Now I did see some comments saying that like Jones's agent could take the Colts to the woodshed now because they don't have an avenue to replace him. But like I don't think that's what's going to happen. Like he'll get a fair deal for sure. 100% get a fair deal in the offseason because he's earned it. As long as he avoids the 5 turnover games like he just had against the Steelers.
Would love if he did.
Yeah, it'd be great. He's going to get his fair deal. But I think both sides understand that this is the best place for him. And I don't envision him leaving. But Alec Pierce part of it's really interesting too, Jay, because you mentioned that I think Pierce basically secured an extension with the Colts in that week 3 game against, or week 3 or week 4, whatever it was, against the Rams. When Mitchell didn't capitalize on his opportunity to really run away with that successor to Alec Pierce role, I think that's when Pierce kind of secured his extension. And then since then, he's just been growing his extension dollars by being awesome in every single week for the Colts. I mean, he's one of 23 pass catchers above 500 yards this season. He's the only one on that list. He's one of 2 players on the list that have played 7 games or fewer. He's the only one on the list with fewer than 50 targets and the only one on the list with fewer than 30 receptions. So he's doing it with very few targets and receptions, and he's got over 500 yards this year. And it's not like with other Colts players where he's played more games than other people. He's only played 7 games. So Pierce is going to cash in big in free agency, and I think it's going to be with the Colts. They've just traded away his replacement in the Sauce Gardner deal, and the guy they're bringing in here is one of his closest friends from college as well. So I do think that part of the implication here, aside from the like win now culture of it, is like Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce are going to be back no matter what. We'll see what it means for like Nick Cross and Braden Smith in the offseason, but I think those 2 guys for sure will be back after the year.
Yeah. Also very team-friendly deal. We kind of touched on this yesterday, but Sauce accounts for almost nothing this year, like $625,000, I think. And then it's like about $10 million next year. So he's guaranteed 25 next year, I think. But then like that's all of his guaranteed money after that. It's just next year.
It's coming out of the owner's pockets as well.
Yes.
So it's not
guaranteed money, and cap money is different. Guaranteed is like stuff that doesn't really affect the books on the salary cap.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think the biggest, most like interesting part of this will be how much does like the Irsay women having to pay Sauce Gardner that 20-something million out of pocket basically to lower that cap hit this next season. How does that impact a signing bonus for Daniel Jones? Because one way to fit everybody in is give Daniel Jones a big signing bonus to lower his year 1 cap hit. And then you can get maybe like a Nick Cross or another free agent. Maybe you go get a pass rusher in the open market. But how much are they willing to put out like that real hard cash on the table, like from day one? Something that Jim Irsay didn't really do a ton of in his, like they were really big on, that cash to cap flow. But that's a nerdy conversation that's not really great for a podcast. So we'll save that for another day. But overall, if we're talking implications of this trade, it's telling everyone on the roster, telling the coaching staff, the other, the front office, we are here to win. We are here to win right now. We believe in the 7-2 team. We believe in this offense. We're giving this big piece of the defense so it can be a top 10, top 5 unit the rest of the way. And we believe where this team can go. And believing that guys like Jones and Pierce are a big part of that, for sure. Like, I think that there are massive implications for this, but I think ultimately the biggest one is let's go win now. This is our opportunity. The AFC is vulnerable for the first time in years. Let's go get it now.
And by God, do they believe in Lou Anarumo? Like, Lou's not even the head coach, but he has been given endless resources and like not even just like a constant flow of new guys for like new reasons, but like it's like plugging leaks everywhere. Like something goes wrong, well, we're going to go fix that for you, Lou. And it's like, it's crazy. I've never seen a coordinator have that much pull, in an organization, especially with the Colts. Like
poor Gus Bradley.
Assistant coaches, are you kidding me? Yeah, Gus is like, hey, my boring defense would have eaten with all these resources, but it's like,
yeah. I feel so bad for Gus Bradley and Matt Eberflus in a sense where like Gus Bradley, it's like, okay, we'll trade for Yannick Ngakoue and give you Brandon Faison at a league minimum deal. Lou Anarumo wants Sauce Gardner. Sure, let's go get him. He wants Charvarius Ward. Let's go get him. He wants Cameron Bynum. Let's go get him. Jermaine Pratt's available. Let's bring him in here. It is kind of funny in that retrospect, but Anarumo is the best of the coordinators they've had. So I understand the all-in commitment from Ballard on a guy like Anarumo.
Yeah, without question. No, they're all in when it comes to Lou. All right, guys. So coming up next, this was a great move that kind of covers up a lot of things, but like, are there any areas still that we feel iffy or something that may crop up? Their free agency still exists. They could address these areas really anywhere. We'll talk about that in just a moment. All right, guys, nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, then you might as well get something for it. But that's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. When you pay rent through BILT, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But BILT isn't just about rent, it's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. I love that with BILT, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something that you already have to pay. So whether you're grabbing food at your favorite local restaurant or heading to the gym, you're still earning rewards. So turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use that link so that they know we sent you. All right, welcome back, everydayers. We are talking about the kind of domino effect of this Sauce Gardner trade, what it means for some individual players, the team in general. But, cornerback wasn't the only need the Colts had. Edge rusher was something they needed as well, linebacker. And it maybe wasn't always going to be realistic for those things to be addressed still with outside resources. But I think we've kind of talked about a little bit. This does kind of put a little bit of a thin mask on some of those issues. Obviously, we talked about with the linebackers, there's probably not as much of an onus put on them in coverage anymore. And that's where you really are iffy about them as coverage. As run defenders, they're fine. It's whatever. Jermaine Pratt has especially, I think, kind of given them a shot in the arm. And then the pass rush. You didn't add a pass rusher, but you have bought those guys just a little bit more time to get to the quarterback, which they've been really good at generating pressure, but just not finishing it with sacks. Well, maybe you've kind of given them that kind of little extra kick in the pants.
Yeah, I think when we look at just kind of concerns overall for this team being that true Super Bowl contender, it starts with defense still because that's been the lesser of the two units. You're given this like outstanding secondary, and you just got to hope that like health stays there because Kenny and Mooney haven't been exactly like healthy all season this year. So you want to just see them be like healthy down the stretch and leading into the playoff run that the Colts are going to have this year. So that's the big one. You do mention edge rusher and just the rush up front. And I do think Gardner and Mooney coming back does help the pass rush quite a bit. I still don't think they have that like bona fide star there. Like Latu's taken a big step this year, but he still hasn't really capitalized. We'll see if he can build off that 2.5 sack performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you're kind of still really reliant on just Latu and Buckner getting home for a lot of your pressure up front. But again, the hope is when you have a Gardner and Mooney in here that they're going to cause quarterbacks to hold the ball a little bit longer, which can lead to more sacks and more pressure. Linebacker, yeah, the pass coverage aspect is still a bit of a concern. I think they've been really good in run defense lately, actually. I think the only big gashes we've seen have been like on those like surprise third down runs when the Colts are in dime personnel and it's just bad fits across the board. But a lot of their first and second down run defense lately has been like exceptionally good compared to early in the season. I think the Steelers averaged 1.7 yards per carry this past game.
They were awesome in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and that was with how Pittsburgh runs out of like 13 personnel and 12 personnel, like heavy personnel sets against their nickel and dime defense. I thought they did a pretty good job. But ultimately, Jake, I think the biggest question still, and I hate saying this because, again, he's been really good this year. But because of what just happened this past weekend, we have to at least kind of bring it up is, can this team win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones? It's the biggest question. And I'm not saying right now it's a resounding no, like I would have said in the offseason. But, when you see a 5 turnover performance like you did last week, it does give you a little bit of pause, where like it is interesting the Colts decide to go like this all-in move after the New York Giants, Daniel Jones reared his ugly head in this past game. I still think that's being a little bit rough on him. It was kind of just a disaster for the whole Colts offense in general, but it did, 3 interceptions did pop up on Sunday. So, is it wise to go all in on Daniel Jones? I guess time will tell there, but the key for him is just making sure he doesn't turn back into a pumpkin after this Steelers game and he continues, what he's been doing. Because what he had been doing before that had been great, been phenomenal, but he can't just, regress after the Steelers game. He has to continue with his foot on the gas pedal and just keep going with what he was doing early in the season. So there's still some concerns with this team being a Super Bowl contender, but I think there's a lot more strengths than there are concerns right now with this team.
Yeah, without question. I think we're kind of having to come up with issues for this team right now because they just we wanted them to do something at the trade deadline, and I think they probably exceeded our expectations with that. So we're kind of having to manufacture problems at the moment. But with Jones, I think that's fair criticism. Even the best quarterbacks do occasionally have those games. So I've got my eyes dead set on how he responds because I do think he's earned the benefit of the doubt with every other game this year leading into that was just kind of an aberration. So hopefully that was, that's not a sign of things to come because he did revert into like what we saw in New York with him. But I don't think the offensive line's going to get completely manhandled like that each week either. Because like the Steelers had some dudes up front that for whatever reason just really, really turned it on Sunday. So yeah, I think outside of that, offensive line depth, again, knock on so much wood, but like the offensive line's been pretty healthy this year, and we haven't had to see their depth tested. So that I obviously think if we have to see the depth, that could be something. I've noticed outside of Tyler Warren, there's been very little contribution in the passing game from the tight ends, but they're also not a part of it, really.
Yeah, they're not really asked to do that.
Everyone outside of Warren is really being asked to block and just do this and that. So that's, again, me just manufacturing problems. Will Mallory hasn't gotten to see the field. That's a big problem for me because I'm very pro Will Mallory.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, I guess the fact that your third and fourth edge rushers are still hurt. But there's not much to complain about. If all these gripes are our gripes, then I think we're doing all right.
The 2 biggest questions, I think, for this team being a Super Bowl contender are, can you get there with Daniel Jones? And can this team stay healthy enough to be that true contender? Because those are the 2 biggest things, quarterback play and health. When you have the roster that's ready to win now, it's quarterback play and health. There's no way to dance around it. That's why, the Chiefs have been very lucky with health in recent seasons, on top of having the best quarterback in football. And that's why they keep getting to the Super Bowl every single year. We look at the years the Eagles have gone to the Super Bowl, it's because they've been extremely healthy, especially on like the trenches on offense and defensive lines. So that's going to be the big one there. But if Jones can just play the way he did in the first 8 weeks, there's no reason to think this Colts team can't be a Super Bowl contender, especially now with what they have on defense in the secondary. So it's a good team, man. It's a good roster. Like, again, if we have questions at linebacker and questions on the defensive line, it's not like they're terrible there. Like, at worst, their defensive line is like solid. It's just not finishing. At worst, their linebacker room is like solid. Like it's fine. It's not an issue. On offense, there's no like big glaring mistake outside of some depth pieces, which everyone has issues with across the NFL. So yeah, I think this is a very much a win now team. And I understand the Colts going all in for these next 2 seasons. Now we'll see ultimately if it pans out for them, but I get it, man. You had the opportunity to make a rare trade. You got him. And now it's all systems go these next 2 years.
Yeah. Now, this is not a depth concern, but it is a question that relates to this trade that I wanted to kick off you real quick. So you get rid of A.D. Mitchell, and like at times you've been dressing all of your receivers. So Gould is still hurt though, and now you've gotten rid of A.D. Mitchell. You can only call up Laquan Treadwell one more time. Do you just sign him to the active roster now?
No, Coleman Owen, baby. Coleman Owen's time. You have your Will Mallory. Let me have Coleman Owen. Okay, Jake.
Okay. I mean, Laquan Treadwell has been a special teams demon, though.
It'll be Treadwell. I'm assuming when Mooney is activated again, we'll see Mitchell waived off the roster and put back on the practice squad.
Cameron Mitchell.
Yeah, sorry, Cameron Mitchell. There's too many Mitchells. Because they have a lot of corners on the roster currently because they've had all that turnover. I think Chris Lamons is still technically on the roster, right? Like, and he's just only special. So they have like 8 corners on the roster, 9 corners on the roster.
Yeah.
So we'll see a couple of movements there to get like a Treadwell up on the roster. I'm assuming that's what makes the most sense for sure.
They might actually keep Lamons on there because they need a backup nickel. Because when Kenny feels like he needs a break, that's when Lamons comes in. So I think that's honestly why Lamons is still around, even though Kenny's come back. You could see something happen when Mike Hilton eventually comes back, but yeah, they do have like 100 corners right now. It's weird.
Yeah, now that they have everyone healthy and back, essentially, like they have too many corners again. But for a while there, they needed all these guys. But I think we'll see some moves. There'll be Treadwell probably call it up and probably some other roster shakeups. But this is mostly going to be the roster they carry the rest of the year and into the playoffs, and we'll see what happens there. But we want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every single day. The NFL season is finally here, so for your next listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of NFL espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or list your podcast. You guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop? Follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on socials. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube where we list your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tonight for the Colts Squad Show.